All right, we're going to wait one more minute and then I'm going to share my screen. Really excited about this one today. This is going to be the first webinar we've had so far this year that's really connecting those dots between marketing and sales. And I'll introduce Amy formally in just a minute, but we're going to give another minute or so and then get started. Everyone is on mute as you join. So if you want to talk, throw something in the chat. I will give a couple of opportunities throughout the presentation for questions, which I think this one's going to have a lot of good questions, I hope. All right, Grace, I'm going to go ahead and share as we get started. Oh, let's see. Portion of screen. Try not to share my, there we go. Perfect. All right. I love seeing everyone's camera on. That makes this fun. So if you are able, please turn your camera on. Okay, we want to make the most of this time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. As you see today, our webinar is all about the future of sales and marketing for managed services providers and IT companies. I'm really excited about our guest today, Amy Kohl. Some of you, she may be familiar because she does pop into my LinkedIn feed from time to time, as we do hers, and she's been a great partner and friend for several years. Amy, if you can just introduce yourself, I would love for them to hear about you from you rather than me, because I'll probably miss something. So
no, you're good, Laura. Thanks for having me too. I really appreciate our partnership. It's been a lot of fun. Okay, my name's Amy Kohl, and I started a company about 6 years ago called AK Operations. And before I get into what our company does, I just love serving lean sales teams. My entire background has been actually in this growth stage for a lot of leaner teams. So I like the task of having to do a lot with a little. So I'm comfortable there. And I leveraged automation young and early in my career and built my company around some of those best practices. So my company has about, there's 15 women that work here, similar to Laura's. And I really am proud of the scope and problems that we solve every day for our clients. On a personal note, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and every woman that works here is also from St. Louis. And I spend like 99% of my time when I'm not in this legitimate chair on a soccer field with my kids. So, little fun fact for you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Amy. And most of you know me, but if you don't know me, Laura Johns, founder and CEO of the Business Growers, like Amy, a team full of women helping our clients have an in-house, an outsourced marketing team that feels like an in-house team. So like Amy, we work with the companies that a lot of times, specifically managed services providers and IT companies who may not have a full-blown marketing team or anybody representing them in marketing at all. And we're able to come to the table with the full solution for them as they grow. So I'm also a mom. I'm not on the soccer field. I'm on the baseball field. Mom of 2 boys, but really excited to be here. I have a slide that brings back a little,
nostalgia.
Yeah, a few of our memories. So I didn't get these images approved by Amy, but they're all pretty clean. No, Amy and I, again, we've gone back for years. When I was a CMO at a managed services provider, she was a part of our team. Her team was a part of our team. And we actually did a lot of work, great work together, helping them generate those high quality leads through her programs. And so again, through this relationship, I think it's really uncommon to find women in tech that are surrounded by other women in tech. And when you can find somebody like that, it's going to lead to a great friendship and partnership. So we've spoken at conferences together, specifically in the telecommunications industry. And we've really brought a very similar message to what we're bringing today to other audiences as well. So we're going to talk a little bit. If you've heard us before on stage speaking together, a lot of this is going to sound a little familiar, but we're going to talk about 2 things that we really have not talked about thus far on any of our webinars this year. One is just gaining consistent lead flow for your managed services provider and IT company. And then the second part of this is once you get those leads, how to set your sales team up for success, build your sales team appropriately so you can close those deals. I had a conversation earlier this week. I mentioned to Amy earlier for somebody who said once they got a lead in, they called someone, they were already in contract, so they didn't put the lead in their CRM. They just thought that was a lost cause. And my first thought was like, no, you get the next meeting. You figure out when their contract's coming up. You have to continue to nurture. So we're going to talk about nurturing the leads that you get. And I think this is a really timely conversation, given that we're heading into the summer. Holiday weekend coming up now, but we all know June and July are really tough months for sales teams. And so it's a great opportunity for us to really talk about getting that consistent lead flow and then setting your sales team up for success. So part one of our conversation is going to talk about leads coming in consistently. Amy does it one way for her clients. I do it another way, but we're really going to talk about all the ways we used to do it. And all the ways that maybe you're still doing it, but ways that we need to be doing it going into, especially in this digital world, the opportunities that we have to make traction in the way that Amy does it and our team does it. So we're going to talk first about how to generate those leads consistently. This is a slide. I'd be interested, give me a why in the comments if any of these resonate with you. So this is a slide that talks about why you might not be getting consistent leads and closes. Too swamped in what you're doing, not enough time to focus on growth. You can read them, but definitely maybe you don't have the right marketing strategies in place. You haven't differentiated yourself enough from the competition. That's a huge one, especially for MSPs, because a lot of people just think IT broadly and don't know the difference between different companies. You aren't able to generate those new leads and turn them into new customers. That's a big one. What we're going to focus on, I want you to put a Y in the comments if any of these sound like you. The next, I'd say 4 are really what we're going to focus on today. So if you look at these 4, we're going to talk about 1, generating those leads for new customers. 2, learning how to maximize your digital marketing for those leads to get those leads going, and then nurturing the leads, obviously, and then getting the sales team structure in place. All right. This is a new graphic for us that I'm excited about. So this list is not exhaustive, but I think it's a really good picture of how lead sources have changed over the years and how competition is changing.
Yeah.
Can anyone unmute and speak to maybe anything on the left side, or give me a thumbs up if there's anything on the left side that you've used to generate leads for your business? Can I get any thumbs up? Am I getting a thumbs up?
Lots of conferences, lots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So conferences, events, if you look on the right side, so the left side is representing those traditional lead sources. The right side is representing kind of what I would consider modern lead sources, some of the things that Amy's using, some of the things that I'm using. And then there's a little circle in the middle that I think will never go away. We're going to talk about this later in Amy's portion, the sales portion, but that rep hustle, that person, that boot, those people that are boots on the ground that are actually having the conversations, always important. I think we're always going to meet people through good referrals and partnerships. And then those events and conferences are clutch. My question to everyone, though, is, this is, I think, my favorite. This is kind of meant to be a little bit funny, but this is an example of what happens if you don't have a successful lead nurture program in place. Does this look familiar to anybody? You have that handshake at the conference, or maybe you have that conversation, and then your nurture is trying to get them on the phone, trying to get in front of them. And Amy, I think, Amy knows more dollar for dollar how much a lead like this costs to generate. But Amy, you want to speak a little bit to this approach, sales teams?
There's this philosophy, and it's circulating around right now on LinkedIn a ton. Sales efficiency metrics are like the golden KPI for a lot of these VC and PE backed companies. And this fact that salespeople are the most expensive way to generate leads. So it's our job, essentially the marketing and the leadership team that these reps will roll up underneath. It's essential that we enable them. If not, it's the most expensive lead generation tool. So, and that's what the hello is representing over there. You just keep redialing and dialing and dialing. And that's what I'm excited to share with you in the next upcoming slides. But these lead sources are invaluable. You have to have them. They're very important. Those partnerships should never go away, but it's the other part in between.
Right.
Which is why I like that last graphic with the center circle that will not go away.
Yeah. And I think this model that's on the screen right now is what I like to call a zero predictability nurture. It might work sometimes. But the predictability level is nothing. So you can't, as an owner, founder, CEO, you can't really count on anything that's happening in this type of nurture process. So I have a quote from Act On. I just want to reiterate the value of nurture. I think that we think sales and we think boots on the street, we think closes. We're not really thinking about nurture, but successful lead nurturing can double the percentage of marketing leads that can turn into sales for managed services providers. And research shows that 74% of MSP sales cycles are 4 months at minimum, I think. I'd love to hear from others on this call, if you want to throw in the chat what a typical sales cycle is. I know that it depends on if it comes from a really great referral source. Sometimes it's shorter. But throw in the chat what a sales cycle time frame looks like for you, because if it's true to the 4 months, then that means you've got a 4-month gap that you need to fill with nurture. And keeping yourself top of mind in a variety of different ways is the way to do that. So we're going to talk about how to do that. Amy's got a really good kind of concept in terms of how we should be looking at marketing and sales. Amy, you want to talk to us about GTM strategy?
Yeah. So I'll ask you a quick show of hands in a minute, like who has one bucket or the other or all three of these. But let me explain first what they are. So 20 years ago, when Salesforce first came to market, we had a marketing tech stack and we had a sales tech stack. And that's pretty much how a lot of us are oriented around the strategies too. And it's really kind of, in my opinion, the technology's fault for this division. But we're slowly piecing this together as time goes on and buying cycles change. But the first one, the biggest one, which is what a lot of us know that we need, it's the marketing function. And this is where we're strategically orienting around the market that we serve best. So this is target messaging on your ads, how you're communicating from a sales rep's demo perspective, how you're talking to your customers. We all know this. I mean, you guys all do it to an extent. And the intent here is to generate awareness of what you do, not necessarily talking about who you are yet, but you're educating around the purpose that you serve. And this messaging is relevant for everybody. So this is that one-to-many messaging. And it can be automated, but it can very much be an evergreen talk track too across the organization as a whole. Then on the bottom, so you have marketing colliding with sales. I'm going to skip the center section for now. You have like the sales team, and now they're strategically oriented around accounts and how they can serve them. So this is more of that one-to-one sales messaging where it's like, you have a pain, I know I can solve, here's how I'm going to do it. And this is a lot more personalized. This is a high expense message versus the marketing one is typically a lower expense because you're communicating one message across multiple people. But this is what I would call rep hustle or your rep working accounts. Now, the middle part, in my opinion, is where it all comes together. And the teams that can figure out the go-to-market function are the ones that are going to start thriving. And they'll far outperform their competition years down the road. So when you can take the marketing functions and combine it with what's working with sales and build some automated go-to-market nurture, this is what Laura was just talking about. These are rhythmic touches of sales and marketing voices with the intent to generate a next step or an engagement or a meeting, whatever you guys want to call it. And this is a little bit more dialed in, but not quite one-to-one. So this is what we call one-to-few. This is where we're talking with a relevancy instead of personalization. Typically, this is done at scale with automation, or it can be done too by the rep. Like on LinkedIn, he's talking to specifically his target accounts, but from an industry voice where it's generalized. So again, Laura, not to steal the thunder with the chat, but like if you have all three, could you put a 3 in there. If you have one or two, could you put a 1 or 2 in the chat? And let's just kind of gauge where everybody is so far, or a 0. Totally fine. I think this will help us, Laura, too, identify like when we go with
the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, when we go into those latter slides to really dial it into the right function between marketing and sales. So do you have one of these functions, 2, or all 3 of them?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat yet, but I did see on the sales cycle, somebody said 4 to 18 months. So we're looking at really longer sales.
Which is to our point, typically when we're consulting with companies together, that go-to-market part's important because it's really hard for a sales rep to be highly personalized, 13 to 14 times over a 4-month period of just how long it takes to get a deal done. Okay, so Cynthia, you got 3. Great job. Really great job. I think the next slide we can move on, and you guys are welcome to hop in at any time.
Yeah, so this is just a quick snapshot on both sides. So you'll kind of see a little bit of what Amy's doing on her side. It's the left. And then what my team does on the right side. But it's all an effort to stay visible to the client. At the very top, we might be starting to engage with that ideal customer profile list. Or targeting our ideal customer profile on social media. You can kind of see on the right side, we're trying to get in front of the right people that are the right buyer, profile, etc. On Amy's side, she's, making sure that list, that database is really good and solid. But you can see on both sides, we've got a lot going on. So earlier, Steve said 4 to 18 months. If you're doing nothing for 4 to 18 months, other than that, guy that we saw, then this is, you're not going to be top of mind. Here's what a really healthy lead nurture would look like, both through lead generation, email marketing campaigns, et cetera, and through visibility on different digital marketing platforms. But I don't say this to overwhelm anyone, but I say it to show that we looked at traditional lead sources. But if you're expecting to modernize your lead flow and lead sources coming in, you've got to think about that lead nurture, and you've got to think about it from every angle. So Amy, we're going to show you a couple of slides. This it's graphic intensive, but I want you to everybody dial in right now, because I want you to really think about, Amy's going to show you really what that looks like, lead nurture looks like for her clients. I'm going to show you what it might look like for my clients. So she can speak here to what this means and what this looks like. I have your other slide too that builds, Amy, if you want to show them that as well.
We'll do this first, and we'll go into that one. So just to pan out, the middle part of this slide is you have leads, you have marketing qualified leads, or you could call that an engager. You have meetings, and you have SQL, which is sales qualified. So meaning that we booked a meeting and it is confirmed that it's a member of the buying team and a deal we want to work. So if you think about that just a quick, short, abbreviated life cycle. Now you'll notice, I want to draw your attention to number 1, that big gray box across the top. The demand gen content stretches intentionally throughout that whole cycle. That's on purpose. That's always and forever content nurture. And again, we're talking about what we do, not who we are, because the purpose of that is to educate and create awareness.
Right.
You guys may be experiencing this in your own personal sales cycles, but the several members of the buying team should be nurtured, not just your decision maker. The number one reason people don't win deals is because they're isolated to one champion. Yep. So marketing's voice can educate the whole buying team while your sales rep stays focused on his champion in a lot gentler fashion. Yep. You're more likely to drive your whole buying team nuts if your sales rep starts going after everybody. But marketing can do it significantly more consultative. So that's why it spans across the whole top. Now, on the far left side, you can see all the different channels that can feed this funnel. It's not just website inbound. It's also events. What lists are we getting after an event or after this webinar? What social components are we, or what social contacts are we generating? Is anything coming from paid? Or are they from list sources like Apollo and ZoomInfo? Or is our reps just scraping websites of people that we know we can serve? All of these should flow into this, and folks can enroll into what a general nurture would look like. Then down below, you have the plain text sales emails where either your sales reps are sending this or automation can too. But somebody will always, a contact in my program will always be in both. They'll receive nurture emails and they'll receive sales sequences, but there's logic that's built into the automation that makes it not overwhelming or double up. It's smart. So the next slide is going to help us build on this. So if you look at these three components, go ahead, Laura. We're always going to identify what is the new data in the signals, how do we orchestrate, which this is going to part that might sound like Spanglish, but bear with me. And then the go-to-market place, this is what's going to convert it to an opportunity for my sales team. So this is how we have to orient our minds. It's not just about creative and content. It's really like, for me, it's data, how we nurture, and how we convert. So those are those three buckets. So the first one is we've established that there's 3 new people at an account that we can close. But also there's 4 existing people at this account that are already in our database. I'm looking at signals here. So these are people that are already engaged. We're going to nurture them all so we all orchestrate them. We enroll them into workflows that orchestrate nurture, but those ones with signals will actually get bottom of the funnel orchestration. So if Laura comes back to my website and clicks on book a demo again, the pop-up might say, hey, Laura, I see you're back. Do you have a quick question? Just plop it in here and hit submit and I'll get back to you. So sometimes people don't want to go through a whole demo or schedule an appointment. They just want a quick question. And then obviously we can follow them on LinkedIn too. Then the engagement pops up, and this is where the decision tree happens for go-to-market. Is it a tier 1 account or is it a tier 2 account? If it's a tier 1 account, I want my reps to go after them because that's a priority account and they are worth the human intervention of an expensive hire. That's when those are the folks that are worth the lead generation effort from my team. But the other 80% of the volume is going to come down tier 2. And I'm going to book it on their calendar on their behalf or like through some automation strings and roll it up to the deal. So this is a good example of how it all builds. Now, tackling something like this is typically pretty difficult if you're going from 0 to 60. But if you're sitting in that, you have 3 or 4 of those components, or 2 or 3 of those components that we reviewed earlier, this would be the full well-rounded program.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So then we're going to talk about lead nurture on the ad side or on, just any sort of ads, retargeting, anything on that spectrum. We do ads for clients, Google, LinkedIn, social media. But the ad doesn't just get seen in a form fill. Obviously, if you get a form fill, you've got to kick off an automation to make sure that person knows that you not only want to send them the download that they asked for, but you have something great to offer them. So we take them from ads to landing pages. All of our landing pages have pixels on them to make sure that we can get back in front of them. From that, we take them through once they fill out the form. And I think one thing that's really important that I have found in our business is when you have the opportunity to like Facebook or LinkedIn, make those forms native forms because all of their information auto-populates and they don't have to work hard to get the information that they're looking for. So when we do that. Once they fill out a form, they get that thank you email, they get whatever they asked for, whether it's a meeting booked or a free download of some sort. Then we want to make sure that contact continues to get nurtured. So that contact, when Amy and I work together with clients, that contact starts to get nurtured in the way that they should be from her, or we send them what they have and we can do just a simple email sequence. What I do is not as sophisticated as what Amy's team is doing, but you still don't want to lose that contact by just sending them what they asked for and being done. That's the kiss of death. That's not nurturing, right? So from giving them what they want and then enrolling them in some sort of email nurture, then you want to make sure that you're getting, again, we put those pixels on those landing pages. So you want to make sure you're getting back in front of them with that lower funnel offer. And we're going to, we looked at funnel a few minutes ago, but the closer they get down the funnel, the more you want to, push them because you know that they're interested. So kind of like Amy was talking about engagers, and as they get further, you can kind of make decisions based on how interested they are. You can do the same thing with ads.
Laura, go back one slide. I want to just call out one thing. Like, you don't have to build out a full-blown program like mine. This, like, where it goes, content goes into CRM, client calls. A little fun fact, there's a community, or there's a sales community called AAISP. It's American Association of Inside Sales Professionals. They shared a benchmark report a long time ago that's just basically said, and it's been validated years and years over and over again by other organizations, but if you call within the first 10 minutes of engagement,
yeah,
you're 80% likely to be the vendor of selection. Yeah. The reason is they're window shopping first. And so the minute you get there, yeah, speed to leave. Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. The minute you're there, you're now the first hat in the bucket, and you're setting the tone for all the remaining buying activities that they're going to do. They're going to go window shop their competitors for sure, but you're now setting the tone. Yeah. So again, I just showed you a big built out one when you have 10,000 robust leads flying through this. But really, like, these basics still hold true really well today.
And I think that expectation setting, I know you do it with your clients, Amy, I do it with my clients. We actually now have a whole kickoff expectation setting meeting that we do with our clients that is separate from our client kickoff, because we want to make sure that they understand that there is, I mean, it is critical. You're not waiting. I mean, especially having someone on your team dedicated to these leads that are coming in, we're not waiting on them to start that email automation and to get those. Right. You're calling them. You're getting in front of them in other ways as well. And we, you know, again, depending on what ad program makes the most sense for you, we can run ads to find out who's interested and then retarget them with that offer. And it's always good to have an offer. I almost always just say, don't even spend time on ads if you're not going to be willing to give them something. You want to make sure you're giving something. And here's just a sample of what lead nurture might look like from people coming cold to your website. We want to get back in front of them. Once they leave the website, you want to make sure we get their, if they're on your website, they're there for a reason, get those ads back to them. And then once they, you know, see those ads, then obviously we can capture their information again and get back in front of them with an offer. So these two slides for me are just to show that it's not about, in both of these cases, it's not just about getting the lead. It's what are you going to do with them once you get the lead? And that, again, is making sure that sales teams are aligned, making sure that you understand that they're going to continue to hear about you and see from you. And I think particularly for managed services providers and IT companies, if you're a regional or regionally focused, you've got a couple of, you know, pocket communities and areas that you serve, there's still, for this type of B2B business, a lot of these brands, a lot of times your brand is still relatively unknown in your market. So this part of, you know, generating new opportunities and nurturing those is also a big brand awareness play. You want to make sure some of these are going, you know, you don't, I always say this, and my team's probably tired of hearing me say it, but you don't ask for someone's hand in marriage on the first date. Just like you're, you know, with Amy's program, we're not asking to get married first date. She's got a very sophisticated way that she's nurturing them until she gets to the point where she realizes they're ready for this decision. Same thing when it comes to ads.
Laura, you may remember when we started our companies, the average number of touches to booking the first interaction was like 9.
Yeah.
And it's now, my clients are sitting between 13 and 15 touches. And I still think we're probably some of the best in class organizations.
Yeah.
So it's not going to get shorter. It's definitely not going to get easier. So
there's more noise than ever before.
Yeah.
More noise than there ever has been. Yep. So that's generating leads and lead nurture. We're going to kind of close the door on that for the sake of time. We're about halfway through time-wise. We're about halfway through presentation-wise. So this is part 2. So once you get a program in place that feeds the leads to you that you need, the volume that you need, then this is where, like, I could almost, I don't know, this is where I feel like we get it wrong a lot. Because once you get leads, you have got to have a sales team and a system in place to make it happen. And that's what Amy's going to talk about right now, is just how to, there are a couple different ways. It doesn't have to be the same way for everybody. And it certainly depends on the size of your team. I know that obviously you can't hire somebody for every seat that you want. So Amy's going to talk about, again, she works with lean sales teams all the time. She's going to talk about how to position your sales team to make the most of the leads that you have once you get them. So I want to know right now, give me a thumbs up in the chat if you feel good right now about your sales team structure. And I've already had a conversation with somebody on the call about this today. So thumbs up if you feel good about your sales team and the way that it's structured. Gabe's giving me a thumbs up.
Okay, good. Gabe's killing it.
Yeah.
Well, just to share, so like I fundamentally believe that, you know, the technology realm is why we're so segregated, but I think this is changing. So connecting the dots between the process and the people, I think this team is eventually going to be categorized as the revenue team. I'm seeing it very much in my SaaS clients, organizations. They all roll up to the revenue leader, from marketing to BDRs or SDRs or sales development and the closers. So this revenue team or revenue growth team, however you want to call it, they have specializations to their roles. And to start with marketing, you know, marketing needs to establish like the messaging pillars, like what are we saying, what are we not saying? How are we going to nurture ongoing, which we talked about at great length already. And we need to automate some of these follow-ups so our sales reps aren't the only, so we aren't exhausting our sales development follow-up on unqualified leads. If I can use an if then that says, hey, this one's not qualified, we'll drop it in an automated, thanks for reaching out. Unfortunately, we're not a fit for right now. Please reach out if anything changes. And we're only sending over 10 leads instead of 25. That's a huge win for marketing. Now, for sales development, these are folks that we want fielding the hot leads for marketing. They're doing a lot of the vetting. They're digging into the accounts a lot more. And they're adding and enrolling more contacts per account that we know we're seeing engagement on. So these are folks that they look for like those quick wins with quick meetings while you have the closers focused on like these long tail closes. They're responsible for pipeline. Yeah. Their job is to establish the customer kind of agreement within the sales process. So it's an efficient partnership right out the gate. So knowing these are the three segments that roll up underneath the revenue responsibilities, this is how we think about it in terms of how we close. All right. So the two profiles, we kind of went over this real briefly, but the concept of specialization is something that's still kind of slowly being adapted by MSPs and some of the smaller organizations that I've supported. A book to call out up at the top is Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. It's been around forever. The concept still holds true, but specializing the hunters that are motivated by these little wins, where they're targeting and they're motivated by identifying good responses. What's the right structure of follow-up that I should adopt for this particular segment? These are the people that are really responsible for a lot of the energy at the top of the funnel. The closers, though, they're a little bit more relationship oriented. They're a little slower to win, but that's because of the time it takes and the relationship building that it's going to happen during that problem solving part of the relationship. I used to call these guys our cowboys. So these are usually like the people that, you know, you can hang your hat on. You're like, she's going to come through and hit her number at the end of the quarter. I just know it. Versus you have more of a process orientation around folks that are willing to hunt and like build up their own pipeline like that. Okay, this next slide is where it really all comes together. If you have folks that are specialized, like we just talked about, on the left-hand side, you have one person that's identifying the targets and that same person's prospecting. Then you have your closer coming in, that yellow guy on the left, who's taking the meeting, working the pipeline, and closing the deals. If you're not specialized, you're asking sometimes more headcount to do more things and be less effective.
Yeah.
So you can see like those 13 touches or those emails, door knocks, all those things. It's a lot harder to do when you're splitting your attention across all those variables.
Yeah.
So here's the outcomes. Unspecialized, we might be able to target 100 people at a time. We'll pull in 10 qualified booked meetings. About half of those are usually qualified into deals. The reason for that is because we're pulling them in. We're hunting them and we're saying, I need to meet with you because I think I can solve a problem I'm not even sure you have yet. Mm-hmm. It's different. And we're going to assume a 33% win rate, that you're going to win 1 in 3 of the deals. So you get 2 customers. However, I have marketing targeting a whole TAM or whole total addressable market at 10,000 at scale. and they're getting 1% of those to engage. Now my hunters are booking meetings with people that have intent, and they're qualifying at a higher rate because they raise their hand to say, I identify with this. This matters to me. I'm engaging. And then assuming that same win rate, that's how 2 wins become 5.
Yeah.
With the same head count.
That's good. And I think, again, I mentioned earlier, I think you have to think this way when you're building your sales team, and not everybody's ready. A few years in, it does take time to build. But I think when you can build a sales team that works in this efficiency model, you're going to see big success. And this really doesn't take into account those account managers or those people who are managing your existing accounts and doing upsells, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Right.
Yeah, the fact that just if I could just speak for a moment, there's no question that for the longest time we've operated very unspecialized and with multiple hats, doing all these things all the time, and then having it shift to where it's unmanageable. So absolutely, very, very appropriate for us.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
This is a good graphic. I like this one, Amy.
Yeah. So then now I want to just spend some time saying, like, on a lean this is a good graphic to explain like the leanness of your organizations and my sweet spot, and then really what's making up the bulk of the sales production in terms of pipeline generation. So you have tier 1, they're going to spend a lot of time targeting their accounts, but I'm going to manage a database that's going to take a little less time, but it's going to have more people in it. They're going to identify their key accounts on the left-hand side with tier 1. That's going to, again, take a lot more time, but I'll deploy nurture newsletters and generate interest a lot more efficiently. Then you have the one-to-one prospecting and the one-to-few prospecting. Those are the sequences versus the personalized email. But you'll notice our meetings booked are going to be smaller. So our new appointments, so new meetings, new business meetings will be small in tier 1. And we'll make up for that in tier 2. Now, and if you remember that buildable slide that I started with back in the nurturing phase 1, part 1 of this presentation, that woman that we support in that graphic, we do support about 80% of that volume for that sales team. And 20% of the revenue or 20% of meetings is from their rep hustle, but those accounts are gigantic. So it's really worth it. Yeah. So while I'm definitely teeing them up to have that coverage or like that safety net around their quarter, it's a dream. It's a match made in heaven because they're focused on these whales while we're taking care of everybody else around them. Yeah. So I think it's always both. We don't want to replace the sales rep. We want to enable them to focus on the right folks, but we also want to, we call it enablement, but we want to enable them with some protection around their quarter too.
Yeah. And this is a little off script. I didn't really have a slide for this. I just thought of it, but I think that it's important, particularly for IT companies and managed services providers who are constantly improving their offer, to think about that low-hanging fruit in existing logos. So you've got your current customers and how you can nurture them. You could potentially completely automate that whole process. Mm-hmm. If you know contract dates and you have someone on your team that's committed or dedicated to your existing customer base, account managers, there are very simple ways to put systems in place to manage that pipeline in a very similar way that you're managing a new logo pipeline. You're so right. Don't leave, of course we want to focus on new business, but we certainly, 1, don't want to lose the business we have. And then 2, don't want to lose the opportunity to add revenue with, maybe obviously not as much work as it would take to acquire a new client.
You literally could look at the same graphic, and instead of it saying tier 1, it could say upsells and renewals, and the other side being new business. Right. So if my team was able, or if my program was constantly producing the at-bats on the new business side, while we kept our relationship-oriented folks on the relationships we already have, that's, we're just asking people to do too many things, and what ends up happening, become masters of none, and then we have like very unpredictable sales outcomes. Right. Yeah, good call out.
Good. Gabe says existing clients is one of the hardest untapped. I totally agree. We are all focused on new clients when there's a whole lot of opportunity. And again, not every tech company or SaaS company has the opportunity to upsell their offer, but a lot in this, particularly managed service providers and IT companies do. And that is, I think it's a miss if you're not focusing on that, for sure.
Correct.
Thanks, Gabe. Okay, this is just kind of a final pipeline. Amy and I were talking about how sometimes it's really easy to overcomplicate the pipeline.
Yeah. Yes.
And so let's not do that. Let's just remember that it can be simple. This is a great graphic from Amy that just kind of walks through, okay, what does the pipeline need to look like? If you do have upsells, I think it might look a little different, but maybe not. But I think this is a really good simple graphic that Amy can speak to.
The way I would even just challenge our teams that are tuning in today just to maybe think about this and even make a war room activity with your revenue team around it or your sales and marketing leads. Say, if we were to bucket these 4 categories, are we aligned to this? Or are we watering down our expectations? Are we too wide? Do we need to get more disciplined? So let me just walk through this. And this could translate very well to upsells and more of the accounts that we already have. So fuel. For new business, it would be, are we stocking the pond with the people that we know we can serve best? Or are we spreading ourselves so thin to solve problems for everybody just because it feels good? Or can we zero it in into really who our true target addressable market is? For your current customers is, are we identifying the upsell potential contacts? And that is our upsell and renewal fuel. The second one, meetings booked. This is pretty obvious, but that we have a meeting scheduled with a confirmed member of the buying team. And for new business, that's obvious. It could be for the account managers as well. Meaning you don't want to meet with the user level. We want to meet with somebody that's in charge of our contract.
Yeah.
For the upsells and renewals. And then qualified. To me, this is the North Star. This is a North Star KPI for any of us that are tuning into this call. We should always be able to say that we have confirmed outcomes, that this person is a member of the buying team, meaning they care about solving this problem and they have some skin in the game and making decisions. Mm-hmm. That next steps were set within a reasonable time frame. It's not that, hey, we'll talk about this in Q4. It's, hey, we're going to talk about this in the next 30 days. In fact, can you meet next week just to prepare me? Those are indicators of qualification. And then finally, that we in fact can solve a pain that they know they have. For MSPs, it's pretty clear. You guys are like blessed with a very obvious solution alignment option or opportunity. But for most sales organizations, they might feel a pain, but it's actually a symptom of something else. So like most of my clients have to dig real hard into that. So, oh, thank you. Wow, look at that. And then customer. Customer is obvious, or the upsell's closed. So if you baseline predict the way these things go, you can start to benchmark against conversion rates. And I'm happy to share those. The thing we just dropped in the chat is a blog we just published this morning from our team. It's actually Krista Branham wrote it to talk about the conversions you'd expect out of these 4 base hits. And I'm a subscriber to keeping it really simple. And I think sales is never going to be a home run anymore unless we're selling toilet paper. You just know you need it, you go get it. This is different. A series of base hits is, we got to identify the right people. The next base hit, let's get them on the phone. Now, let's establish that there's actually good qualification reasons for us to engage. And then let's work to becoming a legitimate relationship and partnership. So if you approach sales as a series of base hits, you should have a very firm definition of what all 4 of these process stages look like for your organization.
And what gets them, for your sales team, really clear expectations on what gets them qualified at the next stage. Mm-hmm. Like before you move it, here's what you got to have, making sure that they understand that so that they're not fabricating opportunity. And then you've got stuff that you think's in your pipeline that's really not. Correct.
That integrity is key. That's why I think it's really important for the sales leaders to own this. And then once marketing, with a good marketing leader, even if you're sitting on both sides of the house and you are the sales and marketing leader, just having alignment throughout the organization of what the definitions to you are. These are the pretty general ones that, 40 of our clients adapt to. I think this is pretty universal, and just stay married to it.
Love it. Any thoughts or questions? I've got this final slide that's got, of course, my link at the top. If you want to talk to Amy, her link is there as well. Happy to answer any questions. We also didn't talk about sales structure compensation. As you were walking through those different people, I think it's important to note that you definitely compensate those people differently. Steve, we talked about this earlier today. That's a whole nother webinar probably about sales compensation structure. But I think when you get to the point where you're able to specialize your team to a certain extent, you can certainly also create a compensation structure that incentivizes them in the right way, because I believe that hunters are very much different. I think they run different than a closer does. Totally different. Any questions?
You guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Awesome.
I'll just share this. I've worked alongside a lot of marketing leaders in my time, and oftentimes I get bucketed as one, but I have always held true to serving the sales organization, and I'm typically a line item to them. However, meeting a marketing leader like Laura that's able to really keep like pipeline as the key indicator of success is super rare. And I think that's something that I'm very fortunate to have met her when we did, because there is such tight alignment to really what the companies need most.
Yeah.
She's never reporting these fluffy metrics. There's always conversion conversations within our partnerships, and I hats off to the business growers for that.
I've learned a lot from you. I've always loved that Amy. I actually mentioned this to my team yesterday. The way that you motivate and incent your team is driven by your clients' results.
Oh yeah.
And I think that is fantastic. And I think that is a model that every team that's serving, in a marketing and sales function, supporting sales teams and marketing teams, I think that's excellent. So I think.
Oh, well, thanks.
Value you bring is amazing. Thank you so much. If no other questions, we're going to close this out today. Again, this recording will be sent to you if you register for the webinar. So you'll get this recording, and then we'll be posting it on all of our social channels probably within the week. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, Amy.
Thanks, Laura. Bye, everybody.